What is up, everyone? I am Joe DeHoyos. I am the host of Beyond the Woodline. Um, just real quick before we get into today's show, I just want to tell everyone if you have any kind of strange encounters, any sightings, any strange experiences with the unknown, shoot me an email. It's beyond.woodline@gmail.com. I promise you, I'll listen to you at the very least. I'll, I'll be that shoulder for you guys. I know sometimes you guys can't go to friends and family, even people that you really trust. Not that uh, I'm like the perfect person in the world, but I promise you, you can trust me, and I'll keep your story between us. Part of what I do is try to get information out there and try to bring people together and try to help those that need help. And you know, I do a little bit of networking. Trying to get people with the right person and try to make sure you find the help that you need or assistance that you need, and maybe answers and along the way. Um, that's what I do here. I cover everything from UFOs to aliens to Bigfoot to paranormal, witchcraft, psychic mediums, tarot card readers, soul readings. I try to cover a wide variety of subjects. And I won't think you're crazy. I mean, that's what I do, right? So at least that much you'll know about me. So with all that being said, today I have with me Earl Grey Anderson. How you doing, Mr. Grey?
Hi, I'm doing well, Joe. It's good to
Yeah.
see you. It's been
You
a
know,
while.
yeah, it's been at least a year,
Yeah,
and your your bio is really, really impressive. It really is. And
thank you.
one of the things that really caught my eye is that you included your family. You know,
Mm.
and to me, that just told me tons about you. You mentioned your kids and your grandkids, and even your cat. Thor, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just right off the bat, what does it mean to you to have your family so close to you?
Oh, it means everything. I mean, happy wife, happy life, and that's really true. And
You know,
the support that I have from Lisa, my wife, is just amazing. And I don't know that I could do what I'm doing if I couldn't if I didn't have the support of my family. My son is interested in this stuff. My daughters, they think it's interesting.
right,
But my son he's one of those guys. He's like on Reddit, doing reading all the UFO threads out there. And I guess I was actually on Ancient Aliens last night, and I
right,
guess that he and my grandson were very happy about that. It's my grandson's favorite show, or one of them anyway.
right.
So,
Yeah,
but it's so important having the family, and even my cat Thor, you know.
right. Yeah,
And
that's so
he's
cool. Yeah,
properly named. He's
right.
like he's one of those ginger male cats that
Okay.
he's a little feisty,
Mhm.
but big heart.
Yeah, yeah. Just having my own channel, my own podcast. My grandson loves it. He thinks it's every time he sees me, he's like, "Grandpa, did you see Bigfoot? Did you find Bigfoot?" If he don't want me
Uh,
to show him pictures or whatever. And my
hmm,
family, my kids and my brother and my sister and my nephews and my niece, they always they send me stuff when they find stuff in the mail or like online. They find an
sure.
article or something, man. They'll shoot it over there to me. Like, hey, look, I just saw this. I'm like, oh yeah, I've known about that, but thank you. you know, yeah,
You don't look
just
old enough to have grandkids,
yeah,
Joe.
I've
My
got a six,
goodness.
I've got a
I've
six
got
year
the
old.
gray hair, but you
Well, I've
that's
got
the
no
way to
hair,
trick
so
them. Yeah, there
so
you go.
yeah. So just give you an example, right? My nephew, I guess it'd be Thursday or early Friday morning at 12:10 a.m. He sent me an article about the this where the Russians got into like a shootout. I guess I haven't read the whole article, but I've heard it
Hmm.
before, where like eventually the ETs turned into stone or something like that.
Oh yeah, I've
Yeah,
heard that
yeah,
before.
yeah. He actually
I think
sent
they
it to
turned
me.
I think they turned the Russians into stone. It was
Okay, was
the
that
other
what it was?
way.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah. And he's like, "Hey,
The
Uncle Joe, did you
Gorgon
see this?"
effect, right?
Right, yeah. And I was like, "Oh yeah, yeah." I had forgotten about it, but I had read about it, a couple of years
Hmm.
back. So yeah, it's always fun when people do stuff like
Yeah,
that.
you don't want to piss off the aliens. not a good idea. They were shooting at that so-called, I guess, I don't know. They don't know what it is.
The one in Alaska. I was actually going to ask you about that. Your thoughts on that because all over TikTok, it's UFO automatically.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think you can shoot one of those down, but
Yeah,
not
I
with
don't think.
bullets or with a
Yeah,
missile. Maybe,
yeah,
let's hope they didn't start interstellar incident with that.
right.
That's
Yeah.
not a good
Well,
idea.
apparently we've shot at them before and they
Yes.
return. Yeah, fire. These things they're not going to let us just take them out that
They
easily.
tend to be absorbed into the craft. There is
Right.
one account where a fighter jet shot a missile at a UFO, and it was absorbed. Like the pilot felt like it was actually taking the energy from the weapon and using it in for propulsion
Right.
or something.
Or like the one in Vietnam, right,
Thank
where they
you.
shoot. What was it in Vietnam where the Americans shot a missile at it, and then the next day that missile shows up and shoots an Australian boat?
Oh, really? I haven't.
Yeah, yeah,
That sounds
yeah.
appropriate. That
Right.
sounds.
Yeah,
Our
that was
visitors are very interested in our warrior side. I
right,
think it
right.
perplexes them and frustrates them, and but I mean, so many cases. And I've been doing this for about 8 years now. You know, doing ufology. Just I threw myself at it, and I've got like 900 cases at this
Wow.
point that I've investigated, and you get to where you can start connecting the dots, and you notice similarities from case to case to case,
Right,
and
right.
so often that experiencers are left with certain messages, and they're usually war is bad. You need to
Right.
elevate your consciousness and stop trashing the earth with pollution and garbage. And it's like that's the trifecta of things that people are left with. So it must be important to them. And it
Yeah.
seems like it doesn't matter what the being looks like. It doesn't matter whether it was a benevolent or kind of a more malevolent setting. They all seem to be with those messages if they're left with something telepathically.
Right. Right. Yeah. Um. Yeah, man. We're friends on Facebook, and it just seems like you're busy, busy, busy.
Yeah,
You know. You know.
busy.
You have a lot going on, and it looks like you're having fun, though, man. You want to talk a
Oh,
little
I
bit about
love
what
what
you've
I
been up
do.
to? Yeah.
I'm full-time biologist now. I mean, I retired from my nursing career 2.5 years ago, and I used to work 12-hour shifts as a nurse. Taking care of ventilator-dependent patients and things like that. Now I put all that energy plus into my UF work that I do with MUFON and sometimes privately as well. And I feel like this phenomena is very, very strange, but it is understandable. You can find certain patterns and certain things that are common through all of your cases, and it's just the most worthwhile endeavor I've ever been in my life. I feel like I am getting some answers.
Yeah. Dr. William Lester, he's from Atlanta. Good, good, good guy. He has a question. He says, "How does the guest feel about how the media deals with the UFO topic today?"
Hmm. Hi there, Dr. Lester. It's good to meet you. I think that the media is treating it better than they used to. I mean, it used to be that as soon as if it were mentioned on a news program, they'd cue in the X-Files theme, and people
Right.
would kind of start getting jokey and winking at each other. And I don't see that anymore. Certain, even I mean, Tucker Carlson, hate or love him, I will tell you, the guy is really, really. He's approached the UFO phenomenon seriously, and I hope more. I hope we see more people doing that. On both sides of the political fence. It's not a partisan
Yeah.
issue, and
Right.
and it's not a funny, jokey issue. It's I think the most important thing that's happening on our planet. We're
Right.
being visited, and they're telling us something, and
Right.
I
Yeah.
think we better listen.
Yeah. Yeah. And I normally try to stay away from celebrities when they give me their political views, but I've always found it interesting when celebrities talk about, this subject, the paranormal, Bigfoot, or
Mm.
anything like that. And because they're people at the end of the day, and they experience stuff. Is there anybody else in the Bigfoot community? I mean, in the UFO community besides Tom DeLonge that are really, really uh,
Oh,
have taken this
sure.
thing by the horns?
Oh, Dan Aykroyd, the
Right.
comedian, he's very, very serious about this. We have Goldie Hawn's husband. What, I can't say his name.
Kurt
Senior
Russell.
moment. You get Kurt Russell.
Right.
He was actually flying a private
Oh,
plane
that's right.
and saw the Phoenix lights from the air. And he
Hmm.
put in a sighting report there on the spot as a pilot.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah.
what's weird is that his mind, it was completely erased from his mind. He forgot about it. And
Oh,
then
wow.
it came up again, and it was like, oh my, that was me. That was me that put that call in. Because I mean, anybody that knows about this phenomenon knows that our visitors will sometimes sort of wash your memories away, but they will come back, sometimes through hypnotic regression, but sometimes just by a little prompting thing. And I guess that he saw the Phoenix lights mentioned in a newspaper or something and realized that he was the pilot that put that call in, and he saw it from the air, and he thought
Right.
it was anomalous. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
a couple, there's more.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I
What
think
if you
every
didn't? You know,
sitting president in the last few generations has had some kind of either a sighting, or Ronald Reagan talked about it in front of the uh, United Nations, for goodness sakes.
right.
So
You sure did. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not
And
just hillbillies and stuff seeing UFOs, although hillbillies see and report UFOs, and I take it very seriously. There's some of the
right.
better reports, but
Yeah. Yeah.
I get them in from police officers, from lawyers, from doctors, from all walks of life. It's
Right. You know.
not
Well.
a it's not a it's not like it's just reaching out to a certain type of person. It's
Right.
for
Yeah.
all of humanity, I think.
Yeah. I think for the longest time, in the Bigfoot world, uh, people related the witness with some backwoods hillbilly guy, right? And in reality, I mean, like you said, it's police officers, judges, a surgeon. I know a surgeon who moved here to Texas so that he could investigate Bigfoot more often. you know?
Wow.
Yeah,
There
yeah,
you
because
go.
yeah, it's crazy.
Oh, I
But
know my general practitioner, I'll go to him for annual physical or something. Wants to talk UFO. It's like, oh, any good cases, and I have to bring him like a copy of the MUFON journal sometimes, just to,
right,
he
yeah.
loves it. So, there you go.
Um, at my job, I'm in printing, and we put in this big press, and I guess one of the guys, one of my coworkers was talking to the guy who was putting in the press, who was installing it, and he told him about me, and the guy walks over there to me, he goes, "Hey, you believe in all this stuff?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah." He goes, "I used to be an investigator for MUFON and when he lived in Florida." And he says, "Yeah." He said, I that when he was a kid, he saw a craft that was sitting between two power lines, and
Oh,
that it scared the hell out of him because he said it was sitting on the ground, but the door was open from the bottom. And he goes, we didn't see anybody or anything come in or out, but it scared the hell out of him. And uh,
wow.
he took off running when he was a kid. And that's what got him involved in UFOs and stuff.
I get
Um,
so many military people reporting, experiences. And I mean, I had one Marine here who was in Camp Pendleton, who was literally he was abducted through the barrack ceiling
oh,
to
and I've heard stuff
low
like
Earth
that.
orbit, and
Right.
and and in his case, uh, it was a group of like Earl Greys, but they were kind of threatening him, and I think they were trying to gauge the response of a warrior. Instead of threatening them back, he started praying out loud, and there was like kindness coming out of him. And the next thing he knows, he's back there in his barracks. He's like in the middle of the floor, and his bunkmate's shaking him. He said, "Where were you?" He was looking for him for a couple of
Right.
hours. He thought the guy went AWOL or something.
Hmm.
Well, he was
Yeah.
AWOL, but in low Earth orbit. But I mean, other
Yeah.
cases that are so similar, and you can't discount them. It seems like people are are literally taken physically sometimes, and sometimes to low Earth orbit, and they're given messages. They're shown the Earth below, shown the fragility of our world, and people come back changed.
Yeah.
It's like Edgar Mitchell, the astronaut. He went to outer space, but in a rocket. Saturn V. But the same effect, he said that he felt this great feeling of connectedness with the universe, where everything finally made sense. And he felt like he wanted to take every politician on Earth up there and show them and kind of shake them and say, look, this is what we're protecting.
Right. Yeah.
What these contactees and abductees, it's the same effect. They come back from this experience oftentimes, sometimes with PTSD. It's shocking. It pulls your baseline reality out from under you like a rug. But then people are changed by it. Their empathy seems to be amplified. Their synchronicities will happen for them. That's how it manifests in my life. Is I have these meaningful coincidences that will happen to where it's beyond coincidence. It's almost like there's somebody writing your life out as a script out there. I mean, I'll be talking about, say, some writer that I love and have never met, and the friends, and it's Paul Hynek inviting me to have lunch with Dr. Jacques Vallée or something, which just happened, and I couldn't go. I had just had oral surgery, actually. So I didn't lead on Jacques, and I was walking out of the surgery center, for God's sakes. I hope he could that lunch out again, because I love Jacques Vallée.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
That's my life. Synchronicities, dude.
Right. Yeah. So you're in California, right? That's where
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm
And
Southern California. I'm a Valley boy.
So valuable. Yeah, I have a daughter that lives in Hesperia, which is, I guess, above LA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She lives there. Oh, you know what? Speaking of her, um, this is what she had seen. She's 26 now. She's seen this when she was about 15.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah.
She saw one of our ubiquitous black triangles.
Yeah. She's actually saw it
We
twice.
have a lot of them out here.
Yeah. Yeah. She was actually going to South Texas and almost to the border where they were heading. She got to a place right around Raymondville, Texas, and she happened to look up. It was dark. She was in the back seat, and she said she looked up out the window and she thought that her phone was on, because she had it sitting on her lap. So when she looks down at her phone, it was face down, and it was off anyway. So when she looked back up at it, it shot backwards, and she said that when it shot backwards, it actually looked more like it was skipping. But she said it happened so fast. Yeah, yeah, good times. But
I had a off-duty police officer in Bakersfield who went to take his dogs out at night, right? Backyard. This guy lived on the foot of the Bakersfield airport over there, the sort of the flight path, sort of the landing area ended in front of his house, more or less.
oh wow!
But he went out to let his dogs do their thing, and he has this weird feeling. He looks over where his neighbor's house was, about 35 feet away, and he saw one of those guys, black triangle. Lights were off. It was just hanging there, maybe 10 feet above the neighbor's roof. Imagine that.
Right. Oh wow! Yeah.
I don't know if the pilot was taking a nap or having a coffee break or what. So he said that he was close enough to where he could see like indentation on the side of this triangle, and he could see what looked like a hydraulic system. He had been in the Navy, and it reminded him of the hydraulic systems he saw on aircraft carriers. So he felt like perhaps this was, something that we had built in the black project of some sort. I'm sort of half and half with that. I kind of think that they're coming from us, but I think that our visitors have black triangles too. They maybe we're being copycat with them.
Yeah. Some reverse engineering going on there, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I would be disappointed if in 70 years since Roswell we hadn't, figured some of that out. So maybe that's what we're seeing is your, black budget tax dollars at work, folks. I
I
just
don't
like a
know.
ride in one,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know if I told you before, but like, and it was probably a good, I bet closer to 20 years now, maybe 18 years. I was fishing in Galveston, and the gentleman I was with, it was maybe like, I don't know, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were on the jetties, and he says, "Hey Joe, look," and he points up to our left. So I looked up to the left. We seen this round disc.
Mm,
I mean, we saw it clear as day, even though it was night. It was a full moon, not a cloud in the sky. And
cool.
this thing was maybe about 300 feet above our heads. And like I tell everyone, I think a professional baseball player could have hit it with a baseball. Um,
Wow.
but I mean, and it was so slow. It moved so slow and so steady. No wobbles. It didn't have
Hmm.
any lights. But on the bottom, you could tell that there was like a little, maybe like a half dome on the bottom. And there were like
Hmm.
some little black, with I don't know if there were like indentations or vents or something like that. But
Sort of like this guy.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And
I
we saw it. It made no noise. And like 2 or 3 miles down from where we were at, there's a small airstrip for like single engine planes, private planes that come in, and you can hear those things coming in and buzzing away. This thing was right above us. Didn't make a sound.
hmm.
But Ellington Air Force Base, which is a military base, isn't that far away. Maybe 30 miles away from where we were at. So I always kind of think about that too.
Wow.
Yeah, but it
I
was
had
nothing.
one aerospace engineer put in a sighting report over a Plant 42, which is owned by Lockheed Skunk Works. Uh, Boeing has a satellite facility next door. It's all the same gated area, and you can't. They security is very tight there. But this guy was working late one night, and he was driving home, and he sees the stars being blotted out in front of him. It's very dark. We're talking high desert, Lancaster, Palmdale area. So he slowed his car down to a crawl, and he said that he watched this thing just glide right over. No lights were on. It was just perfectly silent. And he said it was so smooth. He said that
Right.
he'd never seen anything go so smoothly. So he'd stopped his car and he's watching this. At this point, he got out, and he said that it went right over the Lockheed Boeing facility there. He said it landed, but it was like watching a feather fall. He said it was perfectly silent, so smooth, it was just unnaturally so. And and then he asked me if I knew how I got him onto the project somehow. Well, I don't know. My mom unable. She passed away back 1999. So sorry, I'm not sure I'm charged with that. But a lot of people kind of think that those are ours, and I tend that way. But then I'll get other stories where somebody's abducted by a triangular craft or something, and then I wonder what is what. So, but we certainly have a lot of triangular sightings out here. It's a thing. I'll actually be giving a little presentation at the MUFON Symposium about the black triangles of Southern California.
Okay.
Bob Spearing, our director of investigations internationally, he asked me to do a little presentation, and it's like, sure, because we've got them. It was enough of a thing where he saw the pattern and thought that it should be known out there. So, but I these guys, they're very interesting.
Yeah. What are some well, besides a triangle, what are some other uh, common crafts that are seen?
Well, people still see sauce. A few years ago, I had a multi-witness case out in Azusa, California. Two women gave chase to a spherical red object, like right out of Close Encounters, right? The little
Right.
guy that was following everything. Woo! So they ran across town in a little Mini. It wasn't a
Oh wow.
sports car. I know it wasn't all that fast, but they were able to kind of keep up with it, and they saw its trajectory, and then they got stuck in a cul-de-sac. So the two women got out of their car, and they're watching this this red spherical object doing a falling leaf motion over the hills there. There's an old abandoned torpedo testing area that they have in the area. It's all federally closed land now, though, and federally owned. So they have warning signs everywhere, just like at Plant 42 in Area 51. So something's going on in Azusa, I guess. All right, so the women they're stuck. They can see this thing from a distance doing the falling leaf motion when all of a sudden everything lights up behind them. The one woman thought that the parking lot lights had come on. Nope, they hadn't. There's like a 40-foot across flying saucer hovering over a house again. And they said that it would blink off and on, like in and out of existence, though it had some sort of camouflage invisibility cloak that was working quite properly. So that was a really good case. There were two really good witnesses. I went out to the site. I took theodolite photos area and where they saw everything. I was chased out of town by two ladies, by the way. I was taking the theodolite photos. I'd finished taking the photos, and I did stay behind the warning signs and stuff, but I guess contracted security or something. I found in front of me there was a Humvee, no markings, just camouflage. It looked really sort of like high-tech vehicle. I haven't seen a Humvee like this before. It's sleek looking, low slung to the ground. And then there's one, lo and behold, that comes up right behind me. And these guys had me boxed in on a one-lane highway.
Oh, geez.
And they escorted me out of Azusa, California. I very illegally called my state director at the time on the phone. It's like, Jeff, this is happening. Does this usually happen? It's like, no. Just be careful and don't crash and, go where they're taking you, I guess. So they got me to the freeway on-ramp, and they escorted me onto the freeway. And once they saw I was out of town, they got off the freeway. So right. I hit some nerve. There was a third witness that saw the red craft. He was about 3 or 4 miles away. He's an ex-Navy airman, I believe. If I'm not, it's been a while. It's been about 5 years. But so there was one person that saw all this happen that was seeing it from afar. It was unconnected with the two witnesses, and then I had the two front seat witnesses who saw everything. It was a fantastic case. I mean, to figure out the flight path and everything, I actually used a hunter tracking app. Had the woman redo her drive for me, so I knew which streets they were on. I could see, there was a period of time where she lost sight of the thing because it was behind some buildings. And sure enough, this is like a 3-mile drive, and there were the buildings, and it would have blocked their view. I went and canvassed the area, asked other people if they'd seen anything, left with a lot of neighbors. The guy who owned the house where the UFO was hovering, I wanted to go out with a Geiger counter and maybe arboreal ladder, and because it was over the tree, I thought maybe we'd get some, residual radiation readings or something. Well, he was a very religious man, and he was not having it. He said, "You're not going to go and look for UFOs on my property. Now get off my lawn."
Right. Yeah, that's funny.
But that was a really good case, and that was a flying saucer. And we get like V-shaped craft, black triangles. But I still love flying saucers. I hope I get to see one someday. I haven't.
Right.
I've seen a V craft up close once.
You mentioned the Geiger counter. What other pieces of equipment do you keep on hand when you do an investigation, or just on hand?
I've got an EMF monitor, a real good one. Sometimes you'll have like electromagnetic, residual stuff, and I do bring my Geiger counter, and those are the main ones. There's a good theodolite app that you can get on your iPhone if you want one. It works just as well if you go out and spend $1,000-something for theodolite. It works beautifully.
My boss told me that when he was in school, because his mother was very much into UFOs and stuff, and she was like, he's like, I remember growing up with her, like the whole family thought she was crazy, right? Because he said that she was like into UFOs, and that she would go to these conferences, she would go to people's houses, and they would talk. Um, but uh, he built this project. He was maybe, I don't know, fourth, fifth grade, he told me. And he built a project with like this little magnet that was hanging down between two copper rods or something that was supposed to be. He called it a UFO detector,
Hmm.
he won like second place at the science
Wow.
fair. Yeah,
Good for him.
yeah,
You
yeah,
could buy those in the back of comic books when I was growing up.
yeah, yeah.
The
I think
page.
that's where he got the idea from.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that it's more. It's like an EMF monitor, if I'm not
Okay.
mistaken,
Yeah.
which does work. I mean, will detect a UFO if it's close up, you know.
Yeah.
But if it's
Yeah.
close to you, you're probably in it at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How how easy or how difficult is it for someone who wants to have make contact or see a UFO?
Oh, well,
What do you think about people like this is what they want to do? They want to go out, they want to have contact, not just research, but have contact.
first of all, pay anybody, okay?
Hmm.
Because you don't need to pay somebody to look meditative and try to make contact for you. And plus, that's like, a secondhand person. You want to do it yourself. I would say be careful who you're trying to contact. I mean, I tried that, 8 years ago, and it worked all too well because my
Hmm.
wife and I wound up having a visit.
Uh-huh.
And it was scary. I mean, it changed me. It changed my life. And then my wife certainly was not thrilled about, for her, like, you need to tell your little friends they need to leave us alone. I didn't sign up for this, you know. But you can do it yourself. If you can do a CE5 meditation, you just you meditate. I would just kind of use the TM method where I had a mantra that I was given years ago. I'm a very lazy meditator. I really don't do it very often, but I still do remember how to do it, and then it usually worked very well for me. So I would concentrate on the curve, and or you can have like a little mandala to look at, or a fractal, or something like that, and clear your mind. And when you're in that state, you just put it out that I really want to meet you, ET. But I would suggest that you put in there, I want to meet benevolent
Right.
ETs. Don't want to be abducted or probed or any of. And but you put that out there, and I was persistent about it for like a week or two, and wasn't thinking about it. I wasn't really taking it seriously. I thought, I'll try it, and for me, it worked, and it worked very very well.
Right.
And it scared my pants off practically. I mean, it was, I had them come through the wall, the room flooded with light.
Oh,
My
oh,
wife
wow.
remembers the room flooding light.
Okay. Yeah.
But I couldn't move. They paralyzed me, and I experienced what they call the Oz effect,
What
and
is that?
where we had a cricket problem, and suddenly you couldn't hear a cricket in the rafters, and that didn't happen. It was an old house in Burbank, and we had a little concerto of crickets there. No crickets, no external sounds. You couldn't hear. We were on the Chandler bike path there. There was always a sound of traffic and stuff going on. It's an urban area. None of that. It was quiet as if I was in the middle of the desert.
Hmm.
Um, and I felt very calm. And the room flooded with what I thought of as blue light, but I think it just had that feeling of blue. I think it was
Hmm.
synesthesia, where I was experiencing other senses with my eyes, maybe.
Yeah.
But it was very calming, and I think it put me into what I think of as a hypnagogic state, almost hypnotized.
Hmm.
And then the action happened. I couldn't move, and I realized that I was paralyzed. I'm a nurse. I used to take care of paralytics, and that was, that alone was scary to me.
Right.
But The wall opened up. It was as though somebody had poured cream into a cup of coffee. It swirled around. I've called it. It looked like a little galaxy, but it wasn't that bright. It was just, the room was brighter with the light that was in there. But you could see it open up, and there was just. I couldn't see any details in the distance, but you could tell that it was light coming from somewhere back there. And I had 4 diminutive creatures that just came in. They didn't walk up to me. It was almost like they were just like floated up to the bed. There was a tall thing I think of as like a guard or a sentinel standing where the wall and this opening met, and he stood there almost like he was watching the whole thing, but never revealed himself or herself or whatever it was. And they took blood and energy from me, and they did not communicate with me, which scared the hell out of me. The little bit of literature that I had read at that point, it seemed like people were always at least given a calming, it's going to be okay. We're not going to harm you. This will be over soon. But it was nothing like that. It was all business. I mean, they acted like a surgical team. One would start doing something where the other would take over. And it felt to me like I didn't know if they were taking large amounts of blood from me or if it was life force, but it felt like I was being drained. And that's when I got really scared. And in my mind, I was yelling at them. I couldn't use my mouth. As soon as I felt almost like I was going to pass out, and maybe I did pass out at some point. I mean, this whole thing, it took like 15 minutes for this whole thing to happen. They had like these 2 tubes that were connected to me, and they went backwards, almost like you see a fire hose. They just flew back. Nobody was holding them or anything. It was almost like, we're all done doing that and away with you. They kept staring at me, but they were standing still now. The guy standing in the periphery of the opening in the wall was standing motionless as well. They drew backwards while looking at me. I think their eyes have some hypnotic quality to them. And the wall did the swirly thing again, but backwards. And the wall was whole. The room was still flooded with light. And it took me about maybe 3 to 5 minutes before I could move. I could move my eyes. I could breathe. I could sense everything around me, but I couldn't interact with it. When I finally could, I started yelling and screaming, and I shook my wife. And her reaction was, "Oh my God, you've joined this crazy UFO group. Is this the kind of thing I have to look forward to in the future?" But the room was still flooded with light. That's the thing. But I just curled up into like the fetal position, and I told my state director from MUFON about it the next day, and he didn't want to hear this. He was pretty much a nuts and bolts kind of investigator, and suddenly his new field investigator is saying he's met aliens. It's like, right. Well, that's convenient. I kept this to myself for years. I would tell new field investigators because I felt like I owed them that little heads up, that like a caveat, to where this happened to me. If you poke at the phenomena, don't be surprised if it pokes back,
Right.
And be careful with the CE5 stuff. But I spoke with Kathleen Marden about it, and she took it very, very seriously. We had lunch, and I told her the whole thing, and she felt like I had met with this band of renegade Greys that were out there. Okay. She had heard other cases that were very similar to mine, and she was heading up MUFON's experience or reach team at the ERT. And after we talked, I said, "Well, I might be interested in becoming an ERT member." And she said, "Well, Earl, what do you think we were doing the last hour?" I was interviewing you for the ERT, and before I knew it, I was working in the the ERT, and I was like a fish to water. I mean, I had that experience, Joe, and I think that's a huge difference, because I'll tell a person, I'll say, I know that what you're telling is true because I've been this myself. My wife, 2 nights after our initial experience, by the way, she was the one who was shaking me awake.
Oh,
And our room
wow.
was flooded with light again. And she was pacing by the bed. And what she said was, "Oh my God, Earl, you need to tell your little friends they need to leave us alone. I
Right.
sign up for this kind of thing, you know." And she, but after, you know, I mean, for me, thank God. I mean, at least Lisa, my wife, knows that I'm not insane. I mean, she went through the same thing. For her, she doesn't want to talk about it in public. I don't blame her, you know.
Right.
UFOs are my thing, but she will stand up for me. Somebody starts saying that I'm talking out of my woo, you know, she'll get in on them and just, my husband's not a liar, and this is
Right.
true, and you don't know what you're talking about, you know. So
Right.
it helps
So,
having that family, right?
yeah,
You're
yeah,
talking
exactly.
initially that.
Yeah.
Yeah. God bless her.
And I rarely talk about this, but I'm going to tell you right now, and whoever's listening, right? Um, about a year ago, maybe a year and a half, I started, doing some meditations that someone told me to do, and I had some pretty good results out of it. Um,
Mm,
I um, I saw my room fill up with blue light, just like you
oh,
said.
there you go. That's a
Yeah,
marker.
right. So I told my friend about it, right, and he's in the Bigfoot field along with me. I won't say his name because
Hmm.
people know him.
Mm.
So he started doing this too, and his girlfriend and them saw this blue light in their room, but they saw an orb, and they
Mm.
both saw it together, and she freaked out, and she's like, "You're not
Wow.
doing this shit anymore, either," you know. But yeah, the blue light happened to me. I saw a little figure one day
Mm.
when I came out of my restroom. It was late at night. I was working nights at the time, and um, he was standing against my bedroom door, and he backed up through it. It
Wow.
was
Wow.
really quick. Yeah, it was really really
Huh.
quick. And I had some other strange stuff. I won't get in
Mm.
too much detail.
They're
Maybe
masters
I'll
of time, space, and matter. I mean, they can,
yeah,
you know, it's no big deal for them to walk through the wall,
right now.
bring people through. You don't hear about, you know, people being taken into a UFO through a door. Usually, it's right through the wall in there.
Right.
You
And
know.
and and so during that time, I had some strange dreams, some very strange
Hmm.
dreams. And like I said, I won't get into too much detail right now, but some
Mm.
very strange dreams, man. It involved containers and water filling up,
Wow.
crazy, crazy stuff. But
Wow.
yeah.
Well, that's even biblical. It says that young men will dream dreams and old men will see visions. I guess you know, I'm not young anymore, but you know,
Yeah.
there you go. So,
Yeah. This is actually a question I was going to ask you, but Luke was asking me too. What do you think about Bob Lazar's story? And I was
hmm,
just going to ask you, what do you think about him in general?
hmm,
There's a lot of people on
he's
the fence about
interesting.
him. Yeah.
I know some people have problems with Bob's story.
Right.
I do know the person that used to drive him to Caltech for his classes. He would
Right.
drop him off and pick him up again.
Right.
So he is going there for some reason.
Right.
I do know that his name and phone number in the Lawrence Livermore phone, and those guys were all, you know, nuclear physicists and stuff that were there.
Right.
My personal feeling is I've talked to a couple of people about this. My mom, when she worked for officialdom, when she was working primarily as a headhunter for aerospace companies, she would sometimes get like young, unschooled geniuses and throw them at problems. Like Northrop, uh, they had a problem with their mainframe computer, and my mom sent friends out there. Now he was like 17 years old. Um, he'd graduated high school early because he was a math whiz. I mean, his mom was my math teacher, and she hated me. She made me sit in the rain once because I didn't do my
uh,
homework. I was terrible at math. But he could, you know, look at a huge queue of numbers and he would see which number didn't belong there. And so he brought out this paper, after he came back from this job my mom sent him on. He'd been gone for a couple weeks and came back with a new car and a pocket full of cash. Had the old computer readouts, and it's like floop, 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 floop. And he says, "You see this number here?" It was circled in orange grease pencil, right? It's this pre-marker days. We're talking 1970s. He said this jammed up the whole computer system at Northrop, and I was able to figure out what it was, and we were able to fix it. And they were so thrilled. How do you like my new car?
Right.
that's so I think that maybe Bob Lazar was the same kind of thing. That I don't know that there's a record really of him having that doctorate. And technically, he would be able to go back to school and challenge it and get a doctorate back if the CIA or somebody had disappeared it for him.
Right.
But I think that they threw him at a problem. I think the problem was that flying disc that they had, and they couldn't figure out how the propulsion worked or anything else. And they thought, well, maybe this young buck can figure it out for him, and we'll toss some cash at him or something, And that's my feeling. I've talked with a few people in officialdom, and they kind of nod their head, yes, that could be a very good possibility. I mean, I know Stanton Friedman couldn't stand Bob Lazar's story, but, Kathleen felt like it was valid, and Kathleen was Stanton's co-writer on a bunch of stuff. So that's my feeling with Lazar. I think that perhaps he attended class because he understood it. He couldn't afford to go to Caltech, but he just sat in there and took the class as though he were a student. And maybe that's what's going on there. Or maybe he is a physicist. They disappeared his doctorate. I mean, he apparently pissed off the wrong people there.
Yeah, I think that's no doubt that he did that.
Yeah. So anyway, do I think he's the real deal? Yeah, I think that he saw what he saw. I don't know that the story is exactly honest all the way through, but I don't know. I'm not sure. But there's weird stuff at Area 51.
Yeah, he seems to know a lot for
Yeah, he does.
Yeah,
he does,
and he's definitely a smart guy. That's for damn sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so what about you, man? What do you got coming up for 2023? What's on your radar?
Busyness. I mean, I was on Ancient Aliens last night talking about some of the same stuff I was talking about here in greater detail. But I mean, I already had like 7 new experiencer reports come into from like the Southern California area alone. Apparently, after that MUFON episode of Ancient Aliens, that we had so many cases come in that it almost broke down our computer management system. It was questionable whether that's how the reports came in. So I'm always busy with cases. I teach a class in ufology at Otis College of Art and Design here in Los Angeles. Our new semester started 3 weeks ago, so that keeps me busy. I just had a documentary released called MUFON and UFOs. The proof is out there. That award-winning filmmaker Jeremy Norrie did, and it features myself and 2 of my field investigators, and just kind of follows us around a little bit and seeing how we do what we do with MUFON. And that you can watch on the Tubi streaming network, and it's also available on Netflix. And it's just called MUFON and UFOs. The proof is out there. So it's an hour long, and I think it's a worthwhile documentary. So I got more media stuff up this year. I've got the symposium coming up. I'm running both of the experiencer workshops, the Cincinnati MUFON Symposium this year. Let's see. I'm speaking at the McMinnville UFO Festival in Oregon in May. I think that's May 18th through the 22nd, I think.
And what's the name of that one again?
Huh?
What's the name of that one again?
It's the McMenamins UFO Festival. It's in McMinnville, Oregon, where they had that site back in the late 50s, I believe. The What did they call it? The setting, I think. But there was the photograph, and the guy had it in a roll of film, and then he kept taking pictures because he didn't want to waste the rest of the roll of film. Yeah. And there it was, and that I know that Bruce Maccabee has done a great deal of research on that case, and everything about that photograph screams UFO. You know, just the shadowing and the detail. There are people that wanted to say that he'd thrown a hubcap in the air and taken a photograph of it, right?
Right.
And Maccabee
Yeah.
was able to prove that this was, hogwash, that it was the real deal. So they have their UFO festival every year, and I'm really proud to be speaking at it. I mean, it's going to be Sev Talk, my colleague from the ERT, who's wonderful. Travis Walton is one of the speakers.
Cool.
Cheryl Costa is going to be speaking, and myself. So anyway, I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that, and just getting MUFON meetings, in-person ones, rolling again here in Los Angeles. We were shut down by COVID, but we're ready to open again. So that's going to be happening too. A lot of busy.
Yeah. Someone typed in here about the balloons, the Chinese balloons. But yeah, we went over that earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to go back and watch it.
I hope it wasn't a UFO that we shot at. I don't think we could bring a UFO down though with just a, I mean, they shut down a whole missile base, for God's sake. It just hovered there and shot a little light down. And we've all heard,
so
Robert
what if somebody wants to
tell his story,
Right. I was going to ask, what if somebody wants to get in contact with you? How would they get in contact with you?
You can find me on Facebook. I'm just Earl Grey on Facebook, and you'll see I always have like a MUFON thing for my wallpaper, and it says State Director of Southern California. You can email me at Earl Grey Anderson, S-O-N, and Anderson, G-R-E-Y for the Grey, Earl Grey Anderson at gmail.com. That'll go directly to me. And if you see a UFO or you've had an experience of visitation or abduction, go right to MUFON.com. On the frontispiece page, you'll see there's, report a UFO or report an entity. And if you click on one of those, it will take you to the appropriate document, and you can put in a case report. And myself or somebody like myself will go and investigate your sighting or if you put in an experience or questionnaire. We're listeners. We treat those cases differently. We are not there to judge the person or to find out if it actually happened or any of that. We're there as to help you wrap your head around what happened to you. And I can we have support groups that are available out there that I can refer you to. If you have a burning desire to be hypnotically regressed, I've got people that can, that is not offered by MUFON. It's out of pocket and through private people that do this, licensed hypnotherapists. But I do have a list of people that we've vetted that can do that properly for you. And that's how to get a hold of me, Most people just talk to me on Facebook,
Yeah,
I'm on LinkedIn as Earl Grey Anderson, and the Gmail one, Earl Grey Anderson, gmail.com, they'll get right to me.
Yeah. And if anybody wants to get a hold of them, they can't get a hold of me, I'll shoot them a message and give them your information.
Yeah. Absolutely.
How does someone become a member of MUFON if they want to do investigations or research?
Go to MUFON.com. You can go and it's got right on the front page as well. It says become a MUFON field investigator. You get the MUFON field investigators handbook written by my friend Ron Rieger, who's used to be rocket scientist, and he wrote a beautiful, just wonderful manual on how to become a ufologist. There is a way. And you see that book and you take a test. It's an open book test, multi choice, and it took me about a week and a half to read and take the test and do it all. And
Okay.
and then we will mentor you with your first case, but you'll get a caseload and you will become a hands-on MUFON field investigator. Greatest decision, one of the greatest decisions I ever made in my life. Up there burying my wife and you know
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
those essential things. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it changed
Of
my
course.
life.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And lastly, I have one other question for you. You're a singer, songwriter, guitarist. Who were some of
Mm-hmm.
your musical inspirations?
Music. What was that? My
Who were some of your
musical.
musical inspirations?
I'm a obsessive Beatles fan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you could see my shelf better, I got the Yellow Submarine there. It's either Flying Saucers or Beatles. It seems like.
Or Flying Beatles.
I love the music. I love Bob Dylan's lyricism. I
Yeah.
love I kind of an old Deadhead. I love the
Okay.
Grateful Dead because they were so interesting. They sort of became one with the audience. The audience became the band, and there was a lot of telepathy going on stage. I'm a big fan of the band Yes, and I used to know Chris Squire, their bass player, who we sadly
Oh,
lost
okay.
a few years back. But Chris had a UFO experience, and we would speak till 3 in the morning sometimes. It made the biggest impression on his life. He'd be watching this right now if he was still with us. That's how
Uh,
much he was into it. So
and
music
music.
and UFOs go together, and musicians make wonderful field investigators.
Yeah. 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 They travel, so that's good.
Intuition, that's the big number. If you're a good musician, you can intuit what the other guys are going to do. It's like almost a form of telepathy. You don't go and turn around and say, "Take a solo, Charlie." I mean, sometimes people will do that, but
Right.
it's almost, it's sort of like you become one with the other people, and that's kind of what you have to do with the ufology. You sort of, it's part psychic, it's part material. It's unlike anything else, and intuition and those things where you can sort of take arcane knowledge from somewhere else. That's what musicians do, and that's what you do as a ufologist if you're good at it.
Well, cool, man. I really appreciate you coming on the show, man. You're a great guy to talk to. I got 200 more questions, but we'll save that for another day, man.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I'm happy to come back.
yeah,
So
man. I do appreciate it, and everybody in the chat room, and I appreciate all the great comments and questions, man.
I've
Thanks a lot
seen
for
some
that.
of them.
Yeah,
Sammy Hagar, yeah, he definitely had an encounter with our friends. Yep.
cool beans, man. Anything you want to say
John
or
Lennon
add?
too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say John Lennon. I heard
Yeah.
about that too.
I spoke with May Payne once. Well, she was, it was like online, but I was able to ask her about the UFO sighting that they had. And like you, she said, if I had a baseball, I could have hit it.
Yeah.
They saw
Oh,
it from
where?
their balcony in New York,
Yeah.
1973, I think.
Yeah.
He
I
wrote about it in some songs.
Right. I had a playlist that a friend sent me of songs from bands or individuals who wrote songs and they were about their experiences. And when
Mm.
you read when you read the lyrics, you're like, oh crap, it is about a UFO experience.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, that's
It'll
cool.
make an impression on you. And if you're an artist or a musician, you're going to express it. I did. You can too.
Well, cool, man. It's about that time, and like I said, I just want to thank you, man. You're an awesome guy, man. You're very
Thank
genuine.
you,
That's one of the
Joe.
things. Yeah, you're very
It's always a
genuine. That's one of the
pleasure
things.
to come on to your show. I'm always happy to come back. So
Yeah. And is there anything I can ever do for you? Share, promote, whatever, just tag me in it and I'll share it away, man.
thank you so much. I really appreciate
Yeah,
that.
no problem. And I'll be on tomorrow. I got a show tomorrow night, guys. So I know it's Super Bowl, but I think I can get better ratings than those guys. So we'll see.
There you go. You can listen to this show and watch the Super Bowl at the same time. That's what I do, you know.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Hey, thanks for that. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care, you guys.
All right.
It's a
You have a good
pleasure.
night, guys.